Badri sir, shall we start?
Yeah, we can start. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Dear Jayantians, I would like to bring to your notice a few general instructions. Please keep your microphone on mute. Kindly maintain silence throughout the session. And finally, students, please maintain the Jayantian decorum. I quote, wisdom is not the product of schooling, but a lifelong attempt to acquire it. Albert Einstein. A very warm good morning to one and all present, sir. The most estimable resource person, Dr. Badri Narayan Gopalakrishnan, Dr. K. Vinoda Devi, Head of the Department of Economics, the faculty members, and my dear Jayanti, welcoming each and every one of you to the Budget Lecture Series number 1. Prayer is not asking, but rather longings for the soul to align our hearts to the divine. I require all of you to close your eyes and bow your heads for a few seconds of silent prayer. Thank you, everyone. The primary goal of the union budget is to promote social justice and equality while encouraging quick and balanced economic growth in our nation. For the past few days, as a part of the budget week, we as the economics students of Kristu Jayanti College has been provided with privileged platform for the exchange of ideas and various perspectives regarding the unit budget that was proposed as of 2nd February 2023. On this pleasant day, I deem it a privilege to offer a hospitable welcome to the auspicious gathering through this Zoom platform. It's my pleasure to welcome the honorable guest of the day, Dr. Badri Narayan Gopalakrishnan, fellow and former lead advisor and head of Trade, Commerce and Strategic Economic Dialogue, NITI Aayog. Thank you, sir, for taking your time from your busy schedule. It's indeed my privilege to welcome you on the behalf of the Department of Economics, Kristu Jayanti College. Good leaders are the ones that bring enthusiasm, happiness, energy, and encourages others to move ahead. I take this opportunity to welcome one such leader among us, Dr. K. Vinoda Devi, head of the Department of Economics. She has always been our guiding light and of knowledge and success. It's my privilege and honor to welcome you, ma'am. I extend a cheerful welcome to the faculty members of the Department of Economics and all my dear Jayanti. Once again, I welcome you all. Now it's time to present before you and this gathering our respected chief guest of the day. I call upon Ms. Ashley P. John of first year MA Economics to introduce the chief guest. Over to you, Mr. Ashley.
A very warm good morning to all. I'm extremely delighted to honor the resource person for the day, Dr. Badri Narayanan Gopalakrishnan. Sir is a BTech graduate in Textile Technology from PST College of Technology, Coimbatore, and holds a PhD in Economics from the Indira Gandhi Institute of Development and Research, Mumbai. Dr. Badri is a fellow and former leader advisor and head of Trade, Commerce, and Strategic Economic Dialogue of NITI Aayog, Government of India. Sir is a non-residential fellow at CSEP, New Delhi. Senior Fellow at European Center for International Political Economy, Brussels, the founder and director, Infinite Sum Modeling and Consulting Economics at McKinsey Global Institute. Dr. Badri has a vast experience in the field of consulting and advisory. He is serving as a consultant to Overseas Development Institute, London, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, Geneva, International Rice Research Institute, Manila, Asian Development Bank, Manila, and United Nations Development Program, Cairo. Sir is an active member in National Association for Business Economics, Agricultural and Applied Economics Association, as well as in International Input-Output Association. Dr. Badri is a serving as member and board of director at British American Business Connections, Seattle, USA. Founder, director, and treasurer to Cancer Aid Society, Seattle, and mentor for the startups at Make in LA, Los Angeles. It's truly an honor for us to hear from such a reputed personality like you, sir. I once again welcome you and invite you for the talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for the invitation and introduction. I'm very happy to be here to give my thoughts about the recently concluded budget presentation. There are a lot of before the budget was presented, there were a lot of expectations from all quarters of the society and the economy because of not only within India but also outside India, because of several global happenings and domestic happenings recently. One is the global geopolitical changes, because of which there is a huge expectation that India will rise and be a formidable kind of competitor to countries like China to contribute to the global supply chain resilience. So that is one aspect. Secondly, there has been recession in almost every country in the world expected in the coming year, and global recession is also expected. Then the third broad theme that is happening across the world is the net zero transition everywhere. So green growth and increasing dependence on renewables and reduced dependence on fossil fuels. So with all these different global changes, there are a lot of expectations both from the people within India, industry, and people within India and countries across the world about India's plans for the facing all these different changes. And within India, again, all these three things also are relevant for people of India. Greening and this dependence on China. How do we reduce our dependence on China? How do we promote industrial development? How do we avoid a recession hitting India? All these things. And particularly coming out of COVID, we are striving to reach back to the trajectory or the growth trajectory that we were originally marching towards before COVID. We want to come back to that trajectory. So all these things have been thought about, and there is a question of jobs. There is a question of how do we improve the infrastructure of the country, and how do we crowd in private investment. There's a lot of discussion about investments to be boosted in the country, both for tapping in the global demand and for the domestic private industry as well. And also a discussion about consumption. How do we boost consumption and so on. So now with all these different expectations, Honorable Finance Minister, she presented the budget couple of days ago, and she was facing a very tough job, which is two different two different, I would say, kind of paths that could have been taken. One path could have been kind of purely populist, as in do whatever common people would think is best, which also might mean doling out a lot of subsidies, you reduce a lot of taxes and so on. But that is not, that path is not necessarily good for the economy, both now and in the longer term, because that is going to be excessive subsidies and excessive spending may lead to, particularly if the spending is inefficient, it's going to lead to inflation and a lot of other difficulties, and lack of incentives among the people as well. So these are two different things, right? One is what is popular demand or populist kind of path, and the other one is economically viable, economically prudent kind of path. So and also, from a very layman's point of view, one may think that these are the same. What people want in general is the same as what makes economic sense. But in reality, that is not true. In reality, what is mostly perceived as good for people at large is typically not necessarily so good for the fundamentals of the economy. So that is what I was just explaining now. So now I think what is really, as a leader of the country, the minister did not have any major option of choosing between the two, because you have to do both. You have to do what is good for the people, at the same time you have to do what is good for the economy, and that is where I think this budget is really quite a bit of balanced one, wherein you have stability, you have fiscal prudence, and you also have a very positive approach for growth, for capital accumulation, investments, and also for international trade. And one of the main topics I'll be discussing today will be international trade, but I'll also touch upon the other topics. So I think the short good news is that it's a very stable. It's a budget that is going to ensure stability. A lot of good news for the middle class people, for the vulnerable sections of the society. There is a lot of inclusive development related aspects. While the fiscal prudence is also there, you also have the fiscal deficit under control, and you also have a positive roadmap for the future in terms of capital and trade. Policy has been focusing on boosting the exports and substituting the imports. First of all, we have to understand that what are the assumptions behind the budget. So one major assumption is that the nominal GDP growth would be 10%, which is a very, very conservative assumption, I would say, because the real GDP growth is not going to be less than 6%, as our chief economic advisor recently mentioned during the economic survey presentation. And inflation is definitely not going to be less than 4.5%. I mean, it's going to be much more than that. So definitely a nominal growth of 11-12% is easily achievable. But to be conservative, the budget assumes 10% nominal growth in GDP, which means that all the things that budget is expecting, or budget speech as articulated, in reality, we may expect more positive outcomes compared to that. So that is something to just note down. There will be a little bit of buffer beyond what is being assumed here. So a lot of welfare schemes, a lot of infrastructure schemes have received huge. For example, the Prime Minister's Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which is shelter for everyone, houses for everyone. The funds allocated to that have been increased by more than 60%. And also urban infrastructure development has been given a lot of emphasis. So these are all really good in terms of welfare programs, and they are investments, because when you build a lot of houses, you're also going to create demand in the whole ecosystem, and increased investments coming in for building materials and so on. Also, if you look at the agricultural sector, you have a renewed focus on millets, even coining a new name called Sri Anna for millets can be a very important step there, because millets, in my opinion, can serve many objectives. One, they are climate resilient, so they're not excessively water dependent, so they can actually grow at adverse conditions. So they are really good for sustainability, and the nutritional value is very high. And also in terms of trade, we are global leaders in millets, and there is increasing global awareness. Many of you may know that this year has been declared as a year of millets by FAO because of the proposal from India that this year should be declared year of millets. So globally, there has been awareness of millets. Expansion is a great thing, and we are the global leaders in this area in terms of trade as well. Another interesting aspect is to build digital public infrastructure for farmers, and also cooperative sector has been given a lot of importance. Also, another comprehensive policy for artisans for the first time to bring them to the forefront of global trade. That's another great step because that's going to serve a lot of vulnerable sections of the society. A lot of skill development schemes have also been announced. An example is nursing colleges. We have a lot to contribute in terms of healthcare sector globally, and for that, nursing colleges would help both domestic healthcare system and India as a hub for healthcare globally. Another set of steps have been announced in terms of data governance, in terms of artificial intelligence, many centers of excellence, and also digital transformation. So in this, this is something that I'm personally very interested in for a long time. I've been pushing for it, which is Honorable Finance Minister mentioned that we will have at some point have access to anonymized data from various transactions and other granular data sets. That is going to be very helpful for research, and it can also lead to a lot of inputs to policies coming from research, which this audience as both faculty and students may appreciate. A lot of research opportunities coming up. And I also think that a lot of economic research, policy research can be done using these kind of transaction-based data sets much better than sample surveys, because this is almost like population data. So actually, if these things happen, I mean, these are all my imaginations based on the announcements. India can actually be a global leader in terms of how data can be collected on real-time basis and help make policies and strategies. Apart from these, a big highlight of the budget is a substantial increase in capital expenditure in several areas, because capital, as the former chief economic advisor and also the current chief economic advisor had articulated, capital expenditure is really helpful. When the government puts in money in capital, it's going to have return on investment. Just like people at large invest some money and look for returns, the same way the government is doing that, which means that, I mean, it's going to make returns. The returns are not economic, not only financial and economic, but also social returns, how it can help the people at large. So that is a focus. Secondly, there has been announcement of reduction in capital gains taxes, which can be very helpful. And also fiscal deficit targets are being reduced over time. And we are sticking to the past and current targets for now. These are all quite positive, and these all indicate about the positive approach towards capital and fiscal prudence. So these two things. Also, tax reductions are also there to some extent in the income tax. Many of you must be familiar with the reduction of highest income tax bracket from 42% to 39%, which can boost consumption among the richer people. Then for the middle class consumption, you have these different regimes. The new regime, they have increased the tax-free limit to 7 lakhs. That can be increased. So some back of the envelope calculations when I made, I could actually get about like around 0.25% boost to GDP can come just from this consumption boost, actually, so which is a good thing. And coming to the trade aspect, the trade policy of this budget have been quite pragmatic. There are a lot of tariff reductions. My The thought process is also here that there is a lot of support for free market or free trade kind of policies where you reduce all the custom duties to zero, be open. Another school of thought says that no, keep the tariffs high because you have to protect the domestic industry. And I'm a believer of the middle path. So you have to identify. You cannot be ideological. You have to identify the sectors where we don't have any production or any capacity in the future. There we can keep the tariffs pretty much zero because there is no competition coming from imports. Imports are actually going to help the domestic production and consumption. Whereas sectors where we have some importance and we also feel like the imports are going to bother us, there we can keep the tariffs high. So that is exactly what has been proposed. And the another way of thinking about it is keep tariffs low for the intermediate inputs and raw materials so that you can get them at a low cost, and keep them high, tariffs high for the end products so that you can shield the end products from the import competition. So that way you can ensure that there is an effective protection of the sectors to help value addition to expand. So you have more and more value addition happening in the country. So I think, this is what many of you may read in the trade journals and newspapers, this term that often keeps coming up, and that's called inverted duty structure. So inverted duty structure is where your inputs have high tariffs and the outputs have low tariffs. For example, engines may have high tariffs and cars may have low tariffs. And in India, that's not the case. In India, we have engines have low tariffs and cars have high tariffs. What does it mean? It means that Japan can export engines to India at a lower price, but Japan cannot export cars to India. What does that mean? Then engines can be imported, but cars have to be manufactured. So you get engines, then you assemble and you develop a car, assemble and manufacture a car, and then you sell. So that is how value addition happens. And this inverted duty structure happens in many sectors. And in this budget, there is some attempt, I wouldn't say very extensive attempt, but some attempt to fix that issue. Some of the sectors are like inputs going into the textile industry, capital equipment for electric vehicles, and lithium battery production, TV equipment, parts, electric heat coils, ethanol blending, and so on, many other chemicals and so on, and shrimp feed, marine products, many other things, natural diamonds and so on. So now also the tariff has been increased for the products I mentioned so far. Tariffs have been reduced, and tariffs have been increased for sectors that affect the domestic industry. Like one example is artificial rubber, which may affect our farmers, the estate industry, which produces natural rubber. So that is one example. So that is the story about trade broadly. Another aspect is the investments that I already mentioned. Investments can, this capital expenditure directly is going to lead to a lot of crowding in. When government puts in money in investments, it also encourages other sectors to. Once you have a lot of roads developed, then on the roads you'll have a lot of shops, and because of the logistics that is streamlined, you'll have a lot of industries flourishing. So and also a lot of efforts to increase the ease of doing business. One example is reduction in compliance burdens, reduction in the legal incriminations. These have been announced. So now, actually, this investment part I told you is important for the geopolitical aspects that I mentioned before, and because India has to attract all these investments, because there are so many investments coming from other countries, but we have to tap into them. Only when investment climate is good, we can attract them. So global changes are very important to track, and that has been taken into account here. I already mentioned about global recession, inflation fears, and so on. So another important aspect is the green sector, green investments. There's a lot of focus on the renewable sectors. I talked about electric vehicles and so on, lithium batteries and so on. So that is actually in a very small way, we are responding to what the US did in terms of Inflation Reduction Act to give a big boost to the domestic, green sector. And European Union has proposed border adjustment mechanism to keep the tariffs high for carbon intensive product imports. So for these, we have to have our answer on how are we going to face this. So that is where all this green sector focus also comes in, because green economy is not only good for the environment, but it's also good for the business itself. So that is what has happened. But I would say it may appear from my discussion so far that so many positive things in the budget, which is true. There are many positive things, but at the same time, there are many major reforms that are still pending, which could be, this could have been a chance to do them, given that this is the last full-blown budget before the election. However, many major ambitious or radical steps have not been announced. Most of the steps announced are quite incremental and basically fostering stability and signaling that we are on the right path, which is very good, given the huge level of uncertainty that we are facing within the country and globally. But probably I still think there's a lot more to be done, and even the our honorable finance minister mentioned a couple of years ago during the pandemic, relief package announcement, that in this country we can never be satisfied that we have done a good work. Right? There's always a lot of work to be done. And so we can never sit back and say that enough is done, we have done a great job. No. So from that point of view, I think there is a lot to be done, a lot more to be done. It can be a good starting point, but I'm also concerned about the implementation. A lot of great schemes have been announced, and how do we implement them, and how do we follow up on them? You announce something, and we have to see how are we doing, and how are we going to do the next few years, and follow up and so on. So that is another aspect. And also on trade front, I would have also expected much more widespread and systematic approach to eliminate this inverted duty structure and other aspects. But that is unfortunately not there. But there is a beginning there. So we have some sectors covered. With this, I would conclude my discussion, and I look forward to any questions, and we can take a few minutes of the discussion. Thank you once again.
Okay, due to the shortage of time, we only have few minutes to ask any queries. So if anybody could ask these questions, just one or two, if possible. You can post those questions that you have down in the chat box, and so we'll get back to it. Keep all of your mics muted throughout the session. Either way, we've come to the end of the conference budget survey series. I thank you, sir. It was an honor to have you talk to us at this short time and to listen to your valuable insights on the Union Budget 2023. It was an honor, sir. Gratitude is a fairest boon which springs from the soul. I now invite Ms. Kirtana to propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning, one and all present here. I quote, living in a state of gratitude is the gateway to grace. Ariana Huffington. I, on behalf of the Department of Economics, Kristu Jayanti College, deem it a privilege to propose the vote of thanks. The vibration of gratitude attracts more positive thoughts into our lives.
I take this opportunity to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our most distinguished speaker of the day, Dr. Badri Narayanan Gopalakrishnan, for accepting our invitation and spreading the message of knowledge. I extend my sincere gratitude to Dr. Vinoda Devi, Head of the Department, for all the solid support and timely monitoring in every aspect as we do. Thank you, ma'am. An expert lecture of this dimension can't happen overnight and needs meticulous planning and execution and an eye for detail. A big thanks to our faculty coordinator, Dr. Neeru S. Kumar. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to thank our organizing committee and faculties for rendering all possible support and to all of you present here for being with us. Once again, I thank you and I remain.
Thank you, Ms. Kirtanavi. And thank you for all of your feedbacks. The feedback form is provided down below in the chat box. Please before you're exiting from the meeting. Once again, thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
The host can end the meeting right now.